Ads are good, and I'm here to make the case why.
Quinn and I are some of the few people on the planet who think that ads can sometimes, selectively, be incredibly useful.
The vision and mission behind Sourcegraph is to make it so that everyone codes. We felt pained that there were a lot of people that were not able to afford AMP or other coding agents because they're so much more expensive than all the dev tools that you'd had to pay for before.
My guest today is Quinn Slack, the co-founder of Sourcegraph. I wanted to have Quinn on because his company is one of the few that is trying wholeheartedly to put ads into your AI agent. And I think many people will be biased by the previous era of where ads are bad. But I think Quinn and I are some of the few people on the planet who think that ads can sometimes, selectively, be incredibly useful and increase consumer surplus and just be a really great thing. And they're specifically injecting ads into a coding agent, which is perhaps the most successful type of AI agent today. And so I'm just really excited to talk all things about what does it mean to have a sponsored workflow, how this all come together, and the technical journey. So Quinn, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And it is so funny that out of all places for ads to show up in an AI agent, it's a coding agent. Of all places, why that? But it turns out ads are an incredible democratizing force, and they set up incredible incentives to make a really great product on both sides. So ads are good, and I'm here to make the case why.
This is going to be, I'm sure the YouTube comments on this are just going to be very polite. They're going to say, yes, ads are good. Everyone's going to agree with this idea. So I'm curious the origin of this. What was the moment where you're like, maybe ads is the answer?
Well, so we have Sourcegraph, and we started out with code search, which is like a Google for all the code in big code bases. We have a lot of enterprise customers, a lot of big tech companies, and we understood what the workflow of developers like there. We earned the trust of a lot of great companies. And with coding agents, as that started to become possible, of course, that's incredibly compelling. And we built AMP, which is a frontier coding agent. It is built for people that want to be on the frontier. It's built for the people that want to be using their coding agent today. Like everyone will be using coding agents in a year. And it's an awesome product. One of the most common things we heard, though, is it's expensive because we made it unconstrained in token use. And the vision and mission behind Sourcegraph is to make it so that everyone codes. We felt pained that there were a lot of people that were not able to afford AMP or other coding agents because they're so much more expensive than all the dev tools that you'd had to pay for before to be a viable developer. So we had an expensive product. We wanted to figure out how we can make it more accessible. We didn't want to do what it seems like so many other coding agents are doing, which is subsidize customers, because that is unsustainable and sets you up for a rug pull. We've seen that many other times from other coding agents. We wanted to have a strong business, and all of our users want that as well. So was having a coincidental conversation with Parag Agrawal, the former Twitter CEO, who ran one of the biggest online ads businesses, of course, and is a developer, and another guy, Noah Fraden, who had looked into this as well. And it just so happened that the three of us were put together at one of these CEO retreats, and their suggestion was, well, look into ads. And we had thought about it as a joke, but the more we explored, the more that we realized how ads really made sense. We could make them so that they're not intrusive. They're very tasteful. If we make them about the companies that we love and developers love, like Base 10 and WorkOS and TurboPuffer and these kind of companies, then there's something real there. And the targeting could be really good because it can be based on what you're doing in your code base. The action could be something that's not just learn more and talk to somebody, but actually try out, say, using WorkOS to make your user authentication and your app better. And it could automatically provision an API key. And there's all kinds of things. And some of these are possible in any kind of agentic product. We were just the first to do it. And it just so happened to be for developers. So turns out that it's been a huge success. The advertisers are really happy. The users are really happy. I was shocked. I didn't know quite what to expect when I hit that post button on X and posted the announcement of it. But the reception has been incredible.
Maybe to lay some fundamentals? Because I think a lot of people have an understanding of like, oh yeah, there's AI and you use that to code and there's like agents that help you. But very specifically, where in like a developer stack does AMP currently sit? What type of coding agent is it?
AMP is a coding agent. It's right in the middle of your workflow. It's where you start a lot of the tasks now. And it's something you could use AMP, or you could use Claude Code or Cursor or Codex. And there's a lot of other, great products here. AMP is, relative to the others, it is more pushing the envelope of what is possible. It's also more expensive. For a lot of companies, they'll say, we're going to make GitHub Copilot or Cursor available to 90% of our developers, and AMP we will give to the 10% best developers or the most senior developers. So that's what our focus is. But it's a full coding agent that you can use instead of some of those others.
Pre the ads, what would a power user spend per month on if they were running AMP?
The average is $10 to $15 per day, and then it depends on how many days in the month you work. So, could get 200, 300. There's some users that spend a lot more than that, but if you're doing a really big refactor, that's going to cost you a lot, but that's not something every day.
Gotcha. So maybe let's say they're working like 20 days a month or so. It's somewhere like $200 to $300 a month per user for the average AMP active.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotcha. So that is a lot, but it doesn't feel like crazy. It's not like they're spending $10,000 a month or anything on that. But even that price point you found was just too much to stomach for if you're trying to sell to a whole organization. Is that right?
There's a lot of people that can stomach that, but there's even more people that if they have the ability to switch between our smart mode, which is that fully unconstrained, use the best models as much as you want to, that mode, and free mode, then you get to pick where you want to be on that spectrum of quality versus cost. We see a lot of people that use smart 80% of the time, free 20% of the time, or vice versa, and that lets them pick where they want to be on that spectrum of quality versus cost. It's a new kind of choice. There's, of course, people that use free 100% of the time, people who use smart 100% of the time. But what's interesting is we've just seen so much crossover, and that means people have a lot more choice when using AMP relative to the other tools that they use. And they know that they're not getting something watered down. They're not going to hit rate limits when they're trying to get their work done, which is a huge advantage of this model over the capped subscription fees. The other advantage, of course, is AMP is gross margin positive, so you can be sure there's no rug pull that we're setting up, whereas the other business models are not, and they're based on a lot of assumptions that might or might not work out. They might work out for some providers and not for others.
You said there was a big response to the announcement. Can you give me a sense for how big? Was it a big normal growth day? Was it a lot of love? Maybe help me understand the exact size of the pull from the market for this.
The post on X got about 900,000 impressions. It has permanently ticked up our growth on pretty much everything, except, of course, for average user spend per day. That's going down, but that was something that we wanted to go down. So the awareness that it's gotten has been incredible. And in coding agents, it is such a noisy, crowded market. You have to do things that are really bold. When we're going up against competitors like OpenAI that are making $1 trillion of advanced purchase commitments for data centers, and Anthropic and Cursor, it's a big boys game. People are making really big moves, and people see AMP free as one of those. It's something that I think people view as the way that a lot of AI products are going to be monetized in the future, and we're the first.
I agree with that. That was one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. Is I was like, no, AI and ads, it's going to be a thing, and I wrote that, and then you had your announcement, I think, a week or two later, and so it was very validating. So I appreciate you making me look smart.
Yeah, you called it.
What is the ad current form today? Is it a display ad, or what does it look like?
It's a text ad that is separate from the AI's response. So it's really important to know we do not inject ads to steer what the AI is doing or saying or recommending to you. It's entirely separate, just like in Google, how the organic results are separate from the sponsored results. And there's something that's relevant to what you're doing or what's in your code base. And the action then can actually do more than just show you information. It can take action in your code base. And there's a lot more we can do, but that's a great start. And that's what developers have found palatable. I think a lot of people, when they hear ads, they have these nightmares about you're going to be asking it to do something in your app and it's going to recommend you something and there's conflicts of interest. But we've stayed away from those. And I think that's part of why developers have been receptive to it.
For the ads that you're displaying, there's targeting going on, it sounds like?
Yeah.
And is that just on the basis of the code base, or like how what are the targeting variables? Like how do you target this?
We're still tweaking this, but we look for keywords in their interaction with AMP. And when they're using the free mode, we look for certain aspects of their stack, and we'll do scans that we are never sending back up to the server, but that are purely local for targeting to preserve privacy. So if they are using Next.js or SvelteKit in a web app, then we're going to show them different kinds of ads that are more relevant than if they're building something that's entirely backend or in Rust, for example. And also some notion of, does this repo have 30 committers over the last 30 days? It's an active, likely work repo, or is it someone's side project? And that's another way that you'd get different kinds of ads.
So the way to think about this, like the closest comparison would probably be like a programmatic banner ad. You know, you go to Nike.com, then it uses a cookie, and then the next website you're on, you see that shoe you were just looking at the top, where there's some level of targeting going on, but it's not necessarily changing the content on the website.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah? Okay. Maybe my next dumb question is, why not? Why shouldn't you be changing the code? Like, right? Like, I envision a version of this where your agent is actually working almost like a mini salesperson, where it's you want to set up payments. Oh, you definitely want Stripe. You don't want any of these other, forget JP Morgan payments. You want Stripe payments, and here's why. On the basis of your code base, this would work best. Like I would want, like when I'm coding, I would want that. Like, just tell me what would work best with my code and like my tech stack. Just tell me that. I don't want to have to do the research.
I think that if you're asking for recommendations about tools, then there's absolutely an opportunity for us to say that this is a slightly different kind of response you're getting from AMP, that we are showing you what are all the tools. And in cases where one of those is an advertiser, we are annotating that with additional information that's really clearly marked. And for users also, if we can then have an offer that the advertiser wants to give to these users that says, because you're using AMP, because we've qualified you, you're going to get 3 times as many free credits, for example. So yes, we can do that if it comes with additional benefits to the user and it's clearly marked. But trust is so important. And this is why Google, you could say, oh, they have all the temptation in the world to just start showing ads as organic results, but you're going to stop going to Google if they do that. And coding agents, it's a really highly competitive space. The thing that AMP has, the thing that let us build AMP in the first place, is the trust that we had built up among all these devs and customers. It's what let us do crazier, more frontier things on AMP. And it's also what let us do ads. I think there's a lot of other coding agents that if they came out with ads, people would say that's just going to be junk. But because of that trust we had with AMP, we were able to try this and ultimately build something I think is valuable. So we don't want to lose that trust.
A lot of these coding agents now, when you use them, I feel like you spend more of your time on the planning, right? Where you're building a plan of what you want to code, and then you just hit do it, and then it goes off. And especially with AMP, I feel like that's the use case when I talk to developers more often, is they spend more time in English than in code than they used to. So it feels like the place to do this tool injection that we're talking about is actually in the planning phase of like, oh, you're thinking about building payments. Here's here's a pop-up of where you can understand your different options. These ones are a sponsor, but they may or may not be your best bet on the basis of your code base.
Yeah, that's right. There's really 2 ways that we can reach users. One is when they're doing something specific. And that's exactly what you said, when they have an intent to go and add a new payment system or user authentication system or get their company SOC 2 compliant. That's a gold mine. And then there's knowing who they are and what other things they might not have thought of, but that they would benefit from. So, for example, if you're selling SOC 2 compliance services and there's an app that's gone from 2 people working on it to now 7, then the person might not be thinking about SOC 2, but if you can show them that at the right time, that's great. And that's the difference between a Google high intent ad and something on Instagram that's highly targeted. And the cool thing about a coding agent is you actually have the opportunity to do both because it's up on their screen, it's in their workflow at all times, kind of like people are on Instagram all the time. Not me, but obviously there's an incredible ad business there. But then they're also going to it with high intent. And you don't really go to Instagram with high intent for specific purchases or actions. You go to Google. But yeah, the coding agent has both. And that's part of why it is such an incredibly high potential place for ads to really work. And all of this, we're talking about the business model and how we make money and advertisers. What this means for users is not only is it a tasteful ad experience, but they get something that otherwise is really expensive for free. And not only that, but ads are the only way to truly drive the kind of scale that we need to get every single person using a coding agent. And that ultimately drives economies of scale that is going to support all of these data center buildouts and that can make it so that everyone's CapEx plan can be 25% more ambitious because they know that the moment all those GPUs come online, they're going to have a use. An ad-supported coding agent is essentially like a sponge for any unused tokens from good models out there. And so it lets the whole world be bolder in all these data center buildouts. So it's a multi-part system, and I think ads can do a lot of good beyond just giving users a great free product.
One question we have a lot on this show and that I don't have an answer to yet is what degree of vertical integration is necessary. So in the previous generation, in the 2010s, the most successful ad environments were typically in owned and operated platforms. You could control the pixel tracking, you could control the cookies, whatever it may be. AMP isn't quite that, right? Because you're operating in someone else's IDE. Does that stress you out at all, or how do you think about what degree of vertical integration is necessary to deliver this experience?
Well, the hilarious thing is not just the IDE, it's also the terminal. So again, who would have thought that the first place ads would show up in AI products is in a CLI coding agent or in the editor? With a coding agent, one of the really valuable things is you are shipping a program, AMP, to the user's computer. And it is able, therefore, to bypass a lot of the gatekeepers that otherwise would be able to take a cut and potentially make the whole ad model less successful. So for example, VS Code, we have the AMP extension for VS Code, and AMP is distributed through the VS Code marketplace. But Microsoft, which owns VS Code, the most popular code editor, has a long track record of being really fair about the marketplace. And in other spheres, non-developer spheres, you could imagine a similar marketplace controller, like someone who might be running an app store is going to see, hey, somebody else has a new business model and they're selling it through my marketplace. I'm going to try to take a cut. But Microsoft has been really fair about how they let VS Code extensions that are operating in good faith, build new business models there. So I think that by starting out for developers, we're able to actually try this new business model in a way that would just be a lot harder if it was done on other platforms.
Do you think it one day will be necessary for you to go further into the stack to get the level of targeting and integration that you want? Or you feel, oh, no, it's okay if this is as much of a beachhead as we need?
What do you have in mind going deeper into the stack?
I don't know, either up or down. Like either maybe you're getting an IDE or maybe you need to be training your own models that are somehow more ad performant. I'm not quite sure. Or I don't know, maybe you need to be building your own data centers to service your ads. What do I know? But like that's the question, right? Of like how much do you need to own to make the experience competitive and have defensive moats over the long term? I'm curious, have you thought about that, or is it more just I need to deliver ads by next week?
We think a lot about that. And I think, again, there's all these analogies to Google where you could say, hey, Google should be competing with all the websites that it is sending users to. Why is Google sending traffic off of its property to NewYorkTimes.com or Wikipedia.com? And ultimately, Google, by focusing on being the best search and being very choosy with the actual web properties that it owns and operates, it's able to be a lot more efficient and let everybody else compete to build better properties that it can send users to. And for us, the analogy is we don't want to be building out the data centers, taking on that incredible amount of risk. Instead, we want to know that there's 15 major credible parties out there that are making incredibly large CapEx bets. And some of them are on day one going to have full capacity, full usage. Some of them are not, and they're going to need a return. And we want to go to them and offer them this solution. Because in a sense, what we're selling to them is this sponge that can give them a decent return on tokens from, literally the moment they switch on the power. So we benefit from that other market over there. It's a multi-sided market with ads. It's not just about the users and the advertisers. It's also us sourcing the tokens. And we've had to do a few things to make that possible. Like when you use the free mode, we don't necessarily tell you what model it's using. You need to trust us that it's going to be a good enough model. And if it's not, then you should stop using the product and go yell at us, including in the comments section here. But that gives us the flexibility to switch models, to go find where are there good, cheap tokens, or even to work with model providers, something we're doing now, when they have pre-release models and they want to see how do people like it, and what's some very high-level information about the usage patterns. So there's all these ways that we built into the business model so that we can benefit from all the competition in all these different markets around us. And you got to bet there's a ton of competition in all these markets around us.
Yeah. How much open source models are you guys using right now?
They are in the mix for AMP free, and we're really excited. I just saw Kimi K2 Thinking came out. GLM 4.6 is really exciting. And we're seeing in general, they're catching up to the state-of-the-art models, not only in quality, but also in speed. And they're actually going way beyond in speed. So that's another big bet that if that continues to be true, then if we do not have several people on our team deeply involved in making those work really well in AMP, then that's a huge missed opportunity. So one of the other reasons why we did AMP free was as an excuse to go play with some of these models. And that was, a couple months ago. I think that's been proven right. And if then you fast forward and think about what happens there, if the open source models are catching up, I think that's a big threat to the companies that have invested a ton in these vertically integrated data center and model research houses. And it's going to cause them to cut prices. And in that case, these prices are getting cheap enough that then it would mean more models are within reach of being able to be served through an ad-supported model. And I hope that we're the ones doing that because we're building a really valuable ad network. But I think that means that in the future, you could see Sonnet level or GPT-5 level models being cheap enough that whoever is serving them says, we don't even want to charge end users for it. It's much more efficient to do ads rather than collect those small pennies that it actually costs. So I see all of this just pushing in the direction of it's going to be like largely ad supported, except in the very top tier.
I saw with both Cursor and Windsurf with their new models that they're using as I think they're fine-tuned versions of Chinese models for what they're doing in their products. So what you're saying makes sense and on track with what everyone else is doing. You brought up the ad network. So I want to talk a little bit about building an ad network from scratch because that is very, very hard. Like it is not easy. So you have the idea, you realize AMP works, you understand the technical, the strategic implications, and now you just have to do a thing you've never done before as a company, which is go build an ad sales team. Can you kind of walk me through that journey?
It's totally new, and no one has done this for AI at all. So there's a lot of benefit to being the very first to do it. We're going to launch with about 7 launch advertisers, and we were just so successful in getting more and more advertisers on. We had like 95% hit rate of companies that wanted to be in. The day before AMP Free launch, we said, screw it, let's just try to get as many as we can on. And we got like almost 10 more on, including some 6-figure contracts signed between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. the next morning. So there's a lot of latent demand for this. The next step for us is figure out how we can fill ads on things that are not just AMP in other coding agents or other products that reach a lot of developers. We also have code search, which reaches a lot of developers. So, hey, search, Google ads, that's a potential place we can go. And we've got some other ideas. But ultimately, what we want to build here is an ad network. So it's not just AMP that can benefit from this and build a great free product that can reach a lot more users, but other coding agents, other kinds of coding tools that maybe were never even possible in a world where you didn't have an ad-supported model. So we have been, unfortunately, not seeing a lot of uptake from other coding agents, I imagine, because if AMP, one of your competitors, comes to you and says, would you like us to run ads? It's something that takes a little while. But I'm texting with a bunch of these other CEOs and founders, and they're seeing the reception. They're warming up to it. And it's not a never, but it's a let's see how it's going. And I think it's just inevitable.
But yeah, I didn't realize that's like the scope of your ambition is like, oh, we're going to build an ad network for all developer tooling, or like we're going to build an ad network we're willing to outsource to other companies. That's a big vision. That's a big company.
It's not where we started, but we're taking it one step at a time. And if you fast forward all these steps, that's where we think that it's going to get to, because ultimately it's a two-sided marketplace. You got to have as many places you can show the ads that's appealing to advertisers.
What is it? What is the pricing model for these ads? Is it like a impressions? Is it clicks? What do you charge them?
We're still figuring a lot of this out. Right now, it's hybrid of cost per click and cost per impression. I think that in the future, we will get to a world where it is almost entirely about if we can deliver a really well qualified and implemented new customer to you that saw your service, clicked something, got an API key, set it up in their app, then that is what you will pay us for. That's the kind of holy grail that we can get to. And we've heard from our ad customers that they would be willing to pay $500, $1,000 for that kind of really highly qualified lead. But we got a lot of work to get there. And ultimately, it kind of doesn't matter, because whatever pricing we have, if it's an auction, then all of our ad customers will have to then figure out what is the value of that, and it's going to approach that anyway.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is the goal, like, do you have a sales team? Just it sounds like you texting people late at night is the sales team right now. But is the goal to do you learned from the Twitter CEO, they had a bunch of advertising team. Google had more of an auction model. Sounds like you're leaning more towards doing auction-based ads.
Yeah, auction-based, it's just the easiest. We had a moment where the day before launch, we had two companies that were competitors that both wanted to advertise, and they each wanted exclusives against each other. And we were going down that route. The numbers are getting pretty big, which is awesome. But then we took a step back and said, this is why an auction is valuable, so that we don't have to be the one choosing and making up some number. And that can lead to hard feelings all around. That can lead to ultimately developers not seeing the best ads from the companies that think that they would find the most value in reaching that developer. So an auction makes a ton of sense. There's so much work in building this. When I was in undergrad CS, the hardest class I ever took was auction math. I loved it, but it's so complex. My wife is an ad seller at Google working with large enterprise customers. So I've seen the infrastructure that they have to have one of the best businesses in the world around ads. So there's a ton of work. There's a ton of stuff we got to figure out. But we're taking it one step at a time. And because we're the very first to be doing this, it's essentially on easy mode for now. And we would love to get a lot more sophisticated here. And we will.
I mean, if you're going to all the way from where they look at the lead, they click on it, they implement it into their code base, they have the API key, you shouldn't be doing cost per impression. You should be doing percentage of revenue. You're going to give me a decent chunk of this first year revenue that comes through this API key. No way. I charge clicks and impressions, and I'm a newsletter and a podcast. The advertising product that you have is just that's, I think, what makes the category so exciting. If you are an ad nerd, is you can go so much deeper into workflows than any other product ever has. And so you right now, you're undercharging. No matter what you're charging your customers, you're probably undercharging.
Yeah. So let this be known to everyone. You're getting a great deal if you're an advertiser on AMP. The auction mechanism will fix that, meaning that it will tend to be bid up to the point at which companies see value, but they're able to pay more than their competitors. So I think that it will get bid up there. And you're right. There's no other kind of ad that delivers customers that are so well qualified and far along on implementing. And there's another benefit. I said I wanted to explain why I love ads and why they're such a democratizing force, another reason is if you're building a new startup with a great product and you got to reach developers, it's hard to break through the noise. I've felt that. I'm a founder, built now 2 products that have, broken out of the noise, and still it's so noisy. Ads are a great equalizer for you to break through the noise, get away from your market just knowing about the incumbents in your space, and reach end customers. And yes, you got to pay money for them, but they accelerate your business. And if we didn't have ads, you never find out about new products other than through word of mouth. We'd all still be using mainframes for databases or Oracle for databases. All the products that you've ever found out from startups, ads work really well in helping you break out of the incumbency noise.
I'm curious, you're a couple of months into this journey now of doing that, doing ads. Coding is perhaps the place where AI agents have
It's
worked
been 3
the best.
weeks.
Is it only
fast.
3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Oh wow. Okay. In my head, it's been 3 months, which goes to show that what the last 3 weeks have been like for me. Coding agents are perhaps the most successful agents on the market today. There's a lot of reasons why they are uniquely successful. Constrained environments, very clear training data. I'm curious where you think AI agents will work next, outside of coding, because that means there should be an ad network that sparks next. Like, for founders who are listening, like, I wonder what agents I should go build ad networks for.
There are some really compelling work agent platforms, things like Glean or Dropbox or Notion or Dimension.dev is a new one, or Lindy, or these other things where you connect them to all the tools you use at work, and there's an AI agent that has the ability to richly interact with all these things. Seems really compelling. I think it's relatively early in adoption, and in theory, though, they have access to a totally different kind of information. All the stuff that you're doing when you're not coding and all the stuff that non-coders are doing all the time. I think that's a really rich area where you could show ads. It's almost like that is essentially an everything agent, and the potential is incredible there. You got to imagine, though, that OpenAI and Anthropic and Google and all the big players, Microsoft, that they're going to be playing in there too.
Yeah. Do you think that back to coding agents, when Netflix launched their ads, they're like, oh, this will be a lesser revenue opportunity. It's just something we should do. It will buttress up the bottom. But it's turned out that their ad-supported bottom tier users are maybe their most revenue generating. They make a ton of money on those ad ones. Do you see that happening too with coding agents, where ad-supported coding agents will eventually surpass the revenue that you'd expect from a full-time paid tier?
I think as a founder and CEO, I am always looking to have one kind of revenue stream dominate. That's just so much easier. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think that's one of the big unknowns here. We have gotten some of our big enterprise customers that are interested in using AMP-free, ad-supported, for their enterprise users. And they wouldn't use it 100% of the time, but they'd use it for some of the time. And the analogy they have is, yeah, this sounds weird. Why would we let, big bank let our devs use an ad-supported product, but they use Google and they see ads there? And if, say, JP Morgan employees go to google.com, there's no enterprise web search contract that those two companies have signed. JP Morgan is not paying $200 a month for their employees to use Google. It's a free product, frictionless free product, and they see ads there. And that is an analogy that is pretty compelling to some of our enterprise customers. I was not expecting that at all. But when you think about how much money these enterprises are spending on coding agents that has been unbudgeted and really hard to prepare for, it's compelling in the short term. I think that is not something we're seeing across all of our customers, but you could imagine how that could be an incredibly lucrative user base to bring on and also change the kind of revenue mix we're seeing. But I don't know. The thing that I know would really upset a lot of people is if we take a free or if we take a premium paid product and start showing ads in that and don't give anything to users in return. So that I think is a no-no for anyone who's building ads.
How much has this changed your hiring plans or how you're going to structure the company? This, I mean, like you said, there's been a lot of interest. It's been more successful than you think. Are you now trying to staff up like mad, or are you still in the point where you think you need to find product market fit, or is it now just go, go, go?
We are trying to just go, go, go. And that in the past would always mean staff up like mad. Now, given that we can do so much more, we are so much more efficient internally, and ads are a lot more efficient than enterprise sales, especially in such a noisy, crowded market like coding agents, where we see enterprise sales getting done where our competitors are discounting their products 85 or 100% to beat us. I think that's just a crazy world. So we are really excited by ads. It's something that nobody else is doing, and it's something that is not walking us into this 9-way knife fight enterprise sales bloodbath that is coding agents today. And frankly, I see our competitors taking down a lot of big enterprise deals where we're maybe getting 10% of the devs, they're taking down 90%. I'm actually happier to be taking down 10% because we're not making the kind of commitments to do self-hosted and model choice and only using these models. We don't have to make those commitments, so our product can evolve and stay on the frontier. And they're not only getting a bad deal from themselves by subsidizing for those 90% of users, but yeah, they're making decisions that are going to slow down their product. So a lot of ads, what ads is doing is making it so that we can pursue what we believe to be a business model that is consistent with staying on the frontier as a coding agent, so that AMP does not become obsolete. When we do not have to answer to enterprise buyers that are very disconnected from what a coding agent is and can do, that means that we're answering to users who are voting with their feet by using our product, seeing ads, and that's how we get paid. That is a great way for us to stay on the frontier.
I'm convinced, but if you could just do me a quick solid and tell the listeners why newsletter ads are actually a superior product and why podcast ads are definitely better, that would be really useful just for personal reasons. But other than that,
it's true. When you think about populations that have incredibly high use of ad blockers, so they're not going to see ads on Google, they're not going to see ads in their web browser. Where are they going to see ads? Well, they read newsletters from people they trust. Inside the emails, you see the ads. They're usually at the top, and they're trusted. They're people that have subscribed to you and other publications. They're on, Substack and other things like that. They see the ads there. You might be some of the only advertisers that are actually reaching this population where there's such high ad block usage. So yeah, and coding agent ads is another thing. There's no ad block for coding agents. So newsletters, coding agents, I think that they are a great way to reach these people that otherwise are very hard to reach.
Well, that was a very good plug. I was just making a joke, but I appreciate you.
It's true. I appreciate you. People laugh a lot about ads, and I think it's really funny, but they are such a good democratizing force. And so much of what exists around us, this dynamic marketplace with competition where the incumbents are having to fight against upstarts, with free products that are frictionless that we all can use, with the ability to drive economies of scale that make massive, risky CapEx and build-outs possible. Ads are driving all of that. And ads, they're funny to laugh about. They can be very funny, but they are one of the world wonders.
No, I've been surprised, honestly, when I started this. I was like, ads will be a very small part of what I do. But I have had so much positive feedback from readers on some of my ads, like, this was incredibly useful to me, that I now feel more comfortable making it a larger part of the business. The people want it, the readers want it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. If someone wants to try out AMP free, where should they go?
Go to ampcode.com and get AMP, and then you can toggle between smart and free.
Hey, well, appreciate it so much, Quinn, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you. Happy coding.
Thank you.